For Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, our regular Thursday morning show talking about city issues. Good morning, Bob. You all set for the very hot weather this weekend?
Morning, Doug. Yeah, it's been a very, very nice summer for
so
Nebraska, and I guess we're just it's time that that hot weather's coming. And I think about as you look at it, the fair's not very far away, and there are some fairs in other counties, and fairs either bring rain or hot weather.
Yep. We'll always have a few smokers in there, those really hot days where it's 95 to 105.
That's right.
And so have a couple of them coming up this weekend. But
we do.
We'll get through it.
We will. Remember to stay hydrated and take care of your pets.
Yep. Stay inside if you don't have to be outside, or
take
a break every once in a while. So I always feel sorry for especially roofers.
Oh, I know.
In weather like that, because you really got to be of a different makeup, I think, to do
yes, you do.
that work.
Yes, you do.
A little warm up there. So I did not make the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday. Anything of note from the meeting? Or?
Mainly just updates. I don't think there wasn't any resolutions or there's the typical pay the bills that'll come to us on Monday night. Other than that, there's a lot of just maintenance work going on, and some, I think Pat said they got some lines they're rebuilding, and everybody's keeping busy.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice to get department updates, because it kind of gives you a heads up of what's coming down the pike later. Or some of the decisions you'll be taking on as a mayor and council as well.
Right, yeah. So
one thing noticed, I hadn't been out there, but the digging has started on 33rd Street and Lincoln Street and 33rd, I mean.
Right.
The roundabout.
That project.
That was a little later than you expected, wasn't it?
It was. Again, it's kind of like having to coordinate things, and I know that BPW had all of their electrical lines and things moved, but we needed the gas company to come in and move some lines, because you really don't want to hit those as you're starting your construction project, and so it took a little longer to get those moved. Last week, I don't think the reason they mobilized for the most part is that, when we got the 4th of July on a Thursday, it's just kind of I don't want to say a weird week, but it kind of breaks the week up. And so they are now mobilized and moving. I think phase 1, which is going to run from, as you go down Lincoln, from about 24th, 25th Street, somewhere in there, it'll go around and complete the roundabout. And so and all the signs were up probably on Monday. Road's definitely closed at this point in time, so that section will probably take us, I don't know, 3.5 months. Again, depending on the weather. Now, we talk about hot and maybe dry weather. For them, that's a good thing, and they'll be able to make some good progress. I know that their timetable was pretty aggressive as far as the construction of that. They wanted to maybe try to get everything done by right around Christmas time. And so that will really depend on what type of fall that we have. But this first section, I think we're looking at 3 months to 3.5 months.
Let's see, Christ Community Church along Lincoln Street, they retain access off their northwest corner.
Correct. Correct.
So, and then the next phase would be 33rd South.
Right.
Final phase would be the farthest west end.
Just a little bit there, yeah.
Okay.
And then they would be able to access through the roundabout. On that, what would it be, the northeast side.
Yeah. I'm sure, and you mentioned the 3 months or 4 months it'll take to do this first part of it. I'm sure if you haven't gotten it, you've already gotten probably the question about, well, how's that going to affect when the new school opens and traffic around there? I guess everybody's going to have to adjust for a while.
Correct. There'll have to be some adjustments as far as instructions of how to get in and out and around the new elementary will certainly be something that I'm sure Beatrice Public Schools will put out to all the people that'll be going that way.
I'm assuming it would probably be east of the school off at 33rd.
That would be my guess too. Yes.
So, and you do have several entry and exit points off the school, so
right.
Got to get those kids to school and those buses rolling through there.
Absolutely. I would imagine that Jason will be able to talk a little bit about that when it's Spotlight on Education.
Yep. Got some of the events coming up there, I think, on this final Saturday of July. They have the cornerstone laying ceremony and some tours for people there. I think they have a grand opening event in mid-August. And then you get to open a new building, so it's going to be kind of a neat. Education schools are one of the things people look at when they want to come to a community. What are you modernizing? Are your schools up to date? How do you treat education as a factor in your community?
That's very, very true. When companies do come to on a site visit, of course, one of the things that you always take them around is to all the amenities that you have, and schools are a necessity, but they're also an amenity. Mm-hmm. And the nicer the school system, the more boxes get checked, because these people know that they're going to bring in a number of employees that are going to live in the community. And they want to be reassured that their children are in a good school as well. Mm-hmm. So it is a important part of economic development.
Okay. North 2nd Street's been kind of a busy spot lately. There was the repair work that went on about midway between Ella and Grant. Now it's closed from Grant to Herbert. Just some things to address there.
Correct. So, one of the things that you find as weather gets hot and things move around, you see some buckling, mm-hmm. and unexpectedly places that you're all of a sudden got a little bigger project than what you thought you had. We had that same thing on the on the 77 bridge in South. We had a buckle underneath that we had to fix. Mm-hmm. It was asked at BPW, is there any way when you're driving around can you predict where a street's going to buckle? And the answer is no. It is one of those things that will happen. Luckily, again, we have a number of our own staff that can take care of those issues.
Unless you're Karnak the Magnificent.
That's right.
For the people who remember Johnny Carson. Yeah.
You and me.
Yeah, not too many beyond that, maybe. But, you can't really predict when you're going to face a problem. Used to get that also sometimes happens with water lines, as you get... especially during cold weather, you get a few of those too.
You do. And, I think the other thing that people may have noticed is that water main there by the courthouse, mm-hmm. We're finishing that up, but there was a cross joint there that had much more than its own fair share of life and was leaking a little bit, so they had to order that part in and replace mm-hmm. that while they've got everything torn up. So they're getting close to closing that one out too.
That briefly came up during the supervisors meeting yesterday as to whether the water had to be shut off or not. Kind of working around that, so it doesn't have to be. But we're talking maybe a week to finish it all up, or
probably, yeah. We're closing in on that one. Yeah. And it's one of those things that I think we've talked about a lot. Is infrastructure is really, really important, but you don't see it. Yeah. And again, the age of our community, there are a lot of, whether it's a sewer line or a water line that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Driving around town, I noticed, they've had a few armor coat spots, and that work is wrapped up, if I remember right.
Most of that is wrapped up. I think there's a little bit of asphalt sealing that's going to happen next. I think they're kind of using armor coat and then the sealant, and I'm not sure what the difference is. That's a great Jason Moore question, but there is a difference, and I think the asphalt coating is next. So yeah.
Well, I know they tried that. What was it, 3-4 years ago, that experiment with that material on, for instance, Lincoln Street, by the courthouse there. And is that something still kind of tried, or did it work, or was it, hey, look at it now, maybe it's not what we thought it would be, or have you heard anything?
I have not heard any updates, so I'm not sure.
Well, maybe we'll have to get Jason in.
That'll be a good question.
Or James, and have them both talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Any other projects going on as far as streets, water, sewer, electric of note that we
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, a lot of it will be things that, the normal things. There's always going to be joint fixing and those type of things, and working to make sure the power lines are rebuilt and ready to go. So I think otherwise we're kind of in a holding pattern. I think, Nebraska Department of Roads, we talked about how this summer they were going to do 136 through downtown. Of course, I think that's been pushed off until 2026. And so, and again, is that going to be a solid date or not? I don't know. So,
well, and then there's also after that the US 77 situation where there was going to be some work, if I remember right, on that. But that was even farther into the future.
That was like 28. I don't know if it's on their radar screen. So, what happens is the state's no different than the city in our 1 and 6, street plan, as you start looking at different projects and what you thought was going to be one that you needed to do 5 years from now, you may find out that, oh, wait a minute, this street is in a lot worse shape, and there's only so and so much money. And so what was going to be done in year 5 maybe gets pushed to year 6 or 7, so we can come back and do, this one that needs immediate need.
Yeah. Road conditions and traffic sometimes change, and that
Yes, they do.
changes the priorities a little bit. So.
That's right.
Back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan. It is 8:42. Open house event Monday night at the Beatrice Public Library dealt with the concepts for the Lincoln and Paddock Lane school sites once those are not used by the school district anymore, and the city will be taking those over. Give me your first impression about maybe some of the input you either heard or have read from that, and some of the things that you'll be analyzing after that meeting.
Well, first of all, it was very well attended. When you have a public forum or a public hearing like that, it's one of those come and goes, and you have an actual chance to talk to the architects that have planned the project, because, there's sometimes you don't, you might have a question, and certainly we can try to answer it, but it's really nice if it comes right from the architect. I think, some people were talking about water runoff, for instance, and there's 2 detention cells, one for each project laid out there. And why are they laid out where they are? One of the things about water only runs one way, and it's downhill. And so that's how things were kind of laid out. They had a chance to talk about, in a planned development, is there enough parking? And I think, with driveways and the street, there'll be more than enough parking as it's laid out. I think if you look at the project overall, I think you see a really calming neighborhood that took into account safety for everybody who lives there, including families. I think there was a question that was a concern about what's going to be the price of those homes. Again, they'll be market driven. They'll be typically homes of I think it was about 1,400 to 1,500 square feet. I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunate right now. The price of building is more than what it was for us like before pre-COVID. So you're probably looking at that 300,000 plus home. But on the other side of the coin, you're bringing in the opportunity to put on about 40 homes. And one of the things that I know when I ran for this office, a number of people always said, well, we want Beatrice to grow. And in order to grow, you have to have building sites, and you have to have development and builders to build those, because right now, as we've talked, there's not a lot of inventory on the community. And I think one of the things I've always said is, even though the town hasn't grown in a number of years, at least we haven't detracted either. And so now this is going to give us the opportunity to start making some headway in growing the community, because we'll have the resources, which one is housing.
From what you've observed, has the lack of housing over a certain set of years kept a company from expanding or coming here? Or what's your thought on that?
I think most definitely.
Yeah.
I think all the manufacturers have worked through a number of labor shortage issues and continue to do so. When somebody comes in and says we need 100 employees, the first question is, where are those 100 employees going to come from, and where are they going to live? And so I think it has kept maybe some of the mid-size or larger companies to say, okay, that doesn't check our box, which ultimately means we probably would not bring them to the community because they have chosen a different site. Site selecting is just a whole nother bailiwick, where they have their criteria sheet, and if there's not available housing or the opportunity to build housing, that box doesn't get checked.
You always kind of wonder if, for people who commute to work every day, say 40 miles one way, 40 back, that is there a certain, do you just reach that point where you get so tired of that maybe that's what kind of creates a shortage of labor pool too, because people start looking for something closer to home. And then you have companies they're in the business of competing with the same pool of people, but the dynamics of it, having to commute every day, it's tiring for some people.
I've heard two philosophies on that. One is, yes, they get tired of it, and I've heard the other side of the coin. Well, that gives me time to decompress as I drive home and I drive back. I'm not sure if that's really true or not. Yeah. When I left Lincoln to come down here for the first year, I drove back and forth. I will tell you that I found it to be losing 2 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was just not acceptable. Yeah. Two things. Also, I believe that, I strongly believe if you can live where you work, it's a benefit to you and a benefit to the community. So I knew I needed to get moved down here as well. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's tough to commute. Yeah. I say that, but I think about those people that live in, whether it's California or New York, and they go 8 miles in an hour. Yeah. And I'm going, I could, that's not my that's just not my makeup. But.
Or say somebody who works in a city like Denver but lives 80 miles away and commutes every day for 160 miles or something.
Right.
And in very heavy traffic, by the way.
In very heavy traffic. But I think, I think the number of projects that we've got teed up will help us grow the community. Yeah.
Back on the concepts for those school sites, let's take the Lincoln Elementary as an example. One of the things, and you mentioned on, making it as safe as possible, one of the things was to limit the number of driveway accesses. And like in the Lincoln example, extend Grant Street and then use 20th Street also into the... What kind of overall reaction was there to that? Did you sense from people that were there, or was there anybody who spoke about that to you?
Not to me. There was nobody that spoke about that. But on the other side of the coin, I didn't really hear any complaints about that. Again, what we did was try to take traffic we didn't want to dump traffic onto Lincoln Street. Mm-hmm. I think that's, if anything else, that's wise because that's a busy street. Mm-hmm. And so is there going to probably be some concerns because you're going to have maybe a little bit more traffic in some other, established neighborhoods? Mm-hmm. Probably. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really good layout.
Yeah. What happens from here on the concepts? What's the next step for you and the council on that? Well,
the architects take notes on everything that was shared by all the folks, and I have not seen those. I don't think the city administration has seen those. So the next step will be to take a look at what suggestions and comments were from Monday night.
Mm-hmm. Kind of refine the concepts.
Right. And then you take back and you say, well, what can we do and what can't we do? There'll be some things we can do that were suggested. There'll be a few things that, we can't do or we can't control. Yeah. And then that'll help us refine what the next step is, which is probably maybe a little more solid design of where that works. Yeah. Then after that, it's going to be a matter of how do you develop those two spots. Mm-hmm. And that will, ultimately you'd like to see a developer come in and do that. If not, then we have to look at, what is the city's role as being someone that can put in the streets and the infrastructure and then have the lots sold off.
On each site, is it possible to be a phased approach, like develop part of it and then just kind of take one step at a time on each, or what?
I think there's ways you can do what I would say a phased approach, but I think you have to be really mindful as you do that, because what happens a lot of times in developments, if you don't have a lot of the infrastructure there, ultimately somebody says, well, I want this lot here, which is in the maybe a cul-de-sac that's down the ways where you haven't poured your concrete. Yeah. So, as far as a phased approach, I think one of the opportunities, I think Paddock probably has a little more opportunity for that. There were some townhome duplexes that were suggested. I think that could be a really easy win and a place to start, and then move over into the other areas. So this will be kind of an interesting project that will take a couple of years to kind of get done.
as a city, you have some very major projects going on at the same time. This, and then you just got the $21 million in RAISE grant, and of course, that doesn't have to be totally spent till 2033, I believe, or somewhere around there. They're obligated by 2028, and then a certain number of years. But you ever wonder? You ever sit back and go, "How are we going to do all this at the same time?"
Well, I look at it as saying, well, in a lot of respects, one of the things that I think the city administration, and certainly one of the things I've always kind of impressed, at least for the last, it's only been a year and a half, and I'm already worn out, but I look at the fact that we're making plans, and we're moving things forward by making it a planned approach and not a knee-jerk approach. And so I think it's going to be easier to get a lot of these projects done because, we've done some legwork ahead of time, at least knowing where we're going.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that roadmap. We know exactly where we're going. We just don't know how many stops it's going to take to finish that project. So I think we've done a good job of planning, and I think we've taken, when you think about it, we had some set goals that we wanted to accomplish, and we heard people as we ran for offices that they wanted to see growth, and they wanted to see downtown revitalization. And we're trying to move forward on both of those. And, certainly we feel very blessed to have a $21.3 million RAISE grant. I mean, that's just a phenomenal thing that when you put those in, it's like, will we get it, will we not? That's why we went with Merchant McIntyre to, help us with that. And them being in Washington certainly helped, first of all, really write it, and second of all, to work with the folks that we put into office back there to help us get that money.
We didn't even mention Dempster either.
No, I know.
There's another one.
Dempster is still there, and it's on the forefront of everybody's mind.
There's planning on that, too.
There's planning, and again, it's a big price tag.
Yeah. Back with more to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Couple of things to wrap up Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan. One is the ongoing effort to try to find, I refer to it as a Paddock Hotel. A lot of people are still kind of calling it the Kensington, but Hoppy Development is got a proposal. I think they're applying for tax increment financing, I believe, on that. And
yes, they are.
To use it for that. So there's another project that's...
There is. It's another project that ultimately would bring some housing to the downtown. I think they're going through the process to make sure the zoning is right for housing in that project, and they've got some number of plans that are pretty well laid out. So, we're thankful for that. Hoppy has got basically on the drawing board 2 projects for the city. Paddock, which is certainly an important one when you look at the Paddock where it sits and on 6th and Court. It's a pretty visible part of downtown.
Historic building, too.
Historic building. We have to make sure it's protected. So we're very happy that we partner with Hoppy there. And again, they're the ones that are going to start working on Stoddard School.
That's right.
So between those 2 projects, we're blessed to have a quality development company like Hoppy.
Yeah. The other thing, too, there's a project out on East Scott Street, about where 26th would be. If
Correct.
You know where the new U-Stop is, just west of there. What's the update on that?
It's going through the tax increment financing process right now. Once they get through that, they'll be putting up probably their first building. I think there's project there. There's proposed to have 7 buildings there. I think they house... 6 units each, but it'll be again, that one they can phase and build them as they go, and I think they'll be market rate housing. It won't be a low income housing project.
Yeah. Okay. And a lot of the program today we've spoken about housing. The 2 things though you hear the most about in Nebraska, what is needed generally anyway, are housing and childcare.
That is correct.
It's those are the 2 things that seem to keep coming up all the time.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking this must be the housing update mayor's report. But at the end of the day, that's true. I mean, right now, the 2 critical areas in Nebraska and most communities is housing and affordable and safe housing, and then childcare.
Yeah.
And childcare is one that is really important, but it's also a very tough one to handle.
In on the housing side of it, and it's understandable, I guess, but sometimes do you face opposition to that from people that already live in the neighborhood that maybe don't like, or they perceive that it's going to be a certain way, and they're a little skittish about that coming into their neighborhood?
You certainly do. You certainly see some people that would like to see things just the way they are. They don't want to see maybe a little more traffic, those type of things. And you can have that, but you can't have growth.
Yeah.
And if you don't have growth, you don't grow. And to grow, you got to have housing.
Yeah. Okay. Coming up Monday night, council meeting. Is there? There's not a work session.
There is no work
Okay.
session.
All right.
7 o'clock.
All right. So, anything of note that you know of, or the agenda yet to come out there?
Well, actually, we usually meet Thursday mornings after this to go over the agenda, so I haven't really seen it as of yet.
We're always off on our timing here. We
I
need
know.
to have the program on Friday morning or something, but I'm sure there'll be some items on there.
There will be.
Yeah,
Yes.
so-
I mean, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to start handling and cleaning up. There's a lot of. I think the traffic committee will have to be meeting on what do we do with the streets that are where the old schools were. I mean, there's a lot of little cleanup that you do when the school moves. So we'll start working on that.
All right. Bob, thanks very much, and I guess we'll see you Monday night then.
All right.